Okay, I am streaming. And obviously nobody's going to be tuned in yet, but it won't be long. So, got a few things I want to cover today. Because the process of working with OpenToonz, drawing and sketching, there are in the process of creating those lines, creating those drawings, you're going from a sketch to ink, presumably then to color, and there's a good deal of erasing and redrawing that takes place in order to tighten things up. And at the end of the day, it's a fairly inexact science, and the reason for that, I probably should explain briefly. And this isn't a knock on Blender. This is just the way it is when you're probably one of the key shortcomings, I guess, with the Blender grease pencil would have to do with scale. So if you're drawing, and let's say you sketchy, and then you kind of firm up your lines, what you see, if you were to render this right now, you'd see all this sketchiness, but then in the final rendering, depending on the scale of the drawing, they kind of blur together. That's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if you're going for a sketchy sort of aesthetic. The problem I find I run into is you're drawing and doodling, and you're actually, I want to change one thing here. Yeah, I don't want super smooth ink. Okay, so then when you're trying to do clean lines, you're often doing stuff like this. And you could smooth it, obviously, but let's say you're trying to create some clean ink lines, and then you might use the smoothing tool to sort of smooth those lines out, and that's fine. And what happens is when you smooth the lines out, a lot of times you introduce, actually, and you can only see it if you zoom in. You can, in other words, you can create the art and never know there's a problem because you can't see it until you really zoom in and take a look. So, to have the responsibility to do that is not necessarily a bad thing. However, you've got to be aware that you really need to zoom in and really look close, because the Blender grease pencil will fool you. In this particular case, I mean, I could turn on only render. That makes it easier to see by turning off the grid. But you'll notice every single place where lines meet is broken or flawed. I mean, there is no such thing as a good connection. Right here we have it's bleeding over, that didn't connect, that's bleeding over, that didn't connect, and that is both. It's bleeding over and didn't connect. Okay? So now, if the scale of this art were sufficiently small, in other words, if this were scaled down enough, when it renders out, and you won't really, I guess we could make it so you can see this. Let's go to the render settings, OpenGL render, and alpha mode. We'll make it sky instead of transparent. That way we'll get the white background when we render. So now if I render this, and now let's zoom way in, because of the anti-aliasing that took place, a lot of it's been fixed. Okay, but that's only true if it was scaled down. If this was back up to where it was before, and again, I'm kind of spitballing here, but yeah, as you can see, at the actual scale I drew it, all those flaws remain. So again, like I said, if you're going for a sketchy aesthetic and you're happy to deal with that sort of thing, and it doesn't bother you for the look that you're after, then it is not a bad thing. It's just a thing. It's a real thing, and it's a pervasive thing. You can't get away from it. Mainly because there is no concept of, for example, snapping. There's no snapping concept in the Blender grease pencil, so it would be wonderful if you could draw a line and boop, have it snap right here, that sort of thing. I don't know that anything like that is coming in Blender 2.8. I know we have a fill tool, so we could click here and fill this with color, and that's great. So why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because this reality informs everything about the ink lines that ultimately came into this drawing, because all the ink was done in the Blender grease pencil. So with this shot, I've been cruising along, dealing with ink and paint, Pretty happy with a lot of it, I must say. I mean, if you go out, look at this, you know, you got a nice watercolor aesthetic on this wall that the guy's climbing. When our ninja bad guy comes into frame, if we put it in render mode, we can see the blender and the blend in the shadows and stuff. I said blender just because, well, you know why I said blender. It's because I use blender a lot. But you know, it doesn't really look too bad. I'm pretty happy with. I'm probably going to want to do some color correction on him, but basically I'm pretty satisfied with the way things are looking. But I'm always asking myself, can we do better? And so with this shot, I said, okay, I'm going to go into Krita, redo the ink there, just see how it goes. Because my guess is it's not appreciably slower to do inking in Krita versus Blender. And so let's just kind of skip back here and take a look at what I got. I got to look at, I didn't really label my layers, so kind of guilty there. So the sketch, I don't even know what layer the sketch is, but it doesn't matter. The point is I brought this in here, and then I'm going to hit Control 0, so I'm actually at the native scale, and then B for brush. And what I found was, because you can, and by the way, what I'm about to say, there's going to be a big caveat on the end of it, okay? So I'm not about to tell you that Krita is the end-all, be-all application. But what I did find was with a little bit of stabilizer, I was able to create very nice lines. It's super quick to zoom in and just kind of basically make sure that you're doing what you think you're doing. Okay, yada yada yada. So these are nice. You can zoom in and see that these are nice close points. This one might benefit from a little touch there, but the overall accuracy compared to Blender, no contest. Much easier in Krita to do accurate inking. So I thought to myself, well, okay, how does that inform my overall workflow? Well, and I'm kind of jumping back and forth here. Number one, I think that going forward, doing pencil tests in Blender is a super good idea, but I would do it like this. I would say, if this is my character, okay, let's just oh, man, I don't know why I have this set. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go Control N to reload the startup file, and then by default, I'm going to switch it to my sketch pen, and I'm going to make sure the smoothing's turned off, and then resave my startup file. That way I don't always have a startup and it's on the wrong brush. Okay, so what I would do going forward, I think, is I would say, okay, if I've got a character, I'm just going to draw a quick sort of a Disney style character here. Okay, then I would probably say, let's just go to the next frame. Boom, boom, boom. I love the fact we can just do squash and stretch very quickly and easily. Let's hit the G key, and I'm going to stretch this out. So now we go from this to this. And what I would do is I would actually put all my keyframes in just sequentially, one frame at a time. With maybe, if I have the soundtrack ready, then go ahead and play the soundtrack and just get the rough out the timing. Okay, just put all the keyframes in sequence. And if I'm satisfied with the timing and whether or not additional in-betweens are required, if there are, probably do them at the pencil test stage. But bearing in mind, there's nothing difficult about adding in-betweens kind of at the inking stage as well, so it really doesn't matter. But the point is to map out the timing. Instead of working out all the timing in Blender in the sense of putting the keyframes where they need to be, I would leave them all as just a sequence of images. Because natively, that's pretty much what OpenToonz is looking for. If you're bringing in external art, OpenToonz is looking for individual images, and then you work out the timing in the X sheet, right? So this is probably what I would do, and I would just spit out the sketches out of Blender, go and do the ink elsewhere, because pretty much every other application I've been using does a better job of it. Also, obviously does a much better job with trying to get things colored in and painted. So I would kind of use the Blender grease pencil mainly because it's got two reasons. It's got an infinite canvas, and it's performant. Even on the cheapo laptop, it performs very well for just sketching and sort of getting things mapped out. So, back to this. So I went into Krita because I'm like, okay, can we do better in as far as ink lines? And I was very impressed. You look at the quality of this, looks really sharp. And when I painted it in, it just looked really good. I mean, really crisp. There's a little flaw here where this needs to be, I was getting a little, I moved fast, okay? I was just trying to see how is this going to work. If I really needed to fix this, parenthetically in Krita, what I would do is flatten this and then just use the Control T, which is the transform tool, in this mode right here, which is liquefy. And this isn't going to probably work that great because I haven't obviously got the layers separated out, but the liquefy tool does let you do that, which is kind of similar to what you can do in Blender with the, what do we call it, the connecting and reconnecting. Okay, sorry about that. OBS Studio disconnected and reconnected. And by the way, I'm going to say, if there's anyone watching right now, I do not actually have a browser open, so I have no way of knowing that you're watching. I should probably be a little smarter here and open a browser window so that I can see what the heck's going on out there. Give me 10 seconds to do that. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and there I am, and I'm going to look at my channel, and I should see it streaming. And there it is. I'm going to click this open, and then I have to mute it. Hey Warren, good to see you, man. Okay, so as I said, the and by the way, according to YouTube, an error occurred, so I don't know what that's all about. Oh, there, I'm back. Okay, so step one was redo the ink in Krita. It looks good. I'm going, okay. Well, here's the problem. Now what I've got to do is export that so I can bring it into OpenToonz. OBS seems to be disconnecting and reconnecting a lot. Sorry about that. So I'm just going to post that. Okay, so here's the problem. When this looks really good, and we could use Krita for the ink and paint stage, but the problem is we still have to get it into OpenToonz eventually. Well, when I went in and did the conversion process, which is the cleanup tool, it was clunky at best. Okay, and what it made me realize is that the flaw in the project so far that's making things probably more difficult than they should be and look not as good as they should was the inking stage. I really should have not used the Blender grease pencil for my ink. Well, okay, that's alright, lesson learned. Because even when I did the ink in Krita, okay, why would you want to bring the ink and paint into Krita or into OpenToonz in any way other than just as a raster level where it's already pre-done? It's pre-baked character animation, let's say. Painted, colored, inked, the whole deal. Well, the reason you wouldn't necessarily want to do that is because it would be nice to be able to use the OpenToonz, the toonz raster level to change the paint colors after the fact. That's kind of a big benefit of the palettes in OpenToonz. So with that in mind, I tried doing the cleanup process on the Krita art, And even if it was set to color mode here instead of grayscale, it would repeatedly not interpret the colors correctly. They would come out grayscale or they would come out white. And what it was kind of doing is treating the lines and the colors, because what I did was make a simple image with 4 quadrants in it and colored them all a different color so I'd have a test image to bring in and just see what happens. And what happened was it would the cleanup process would interpret it as all being the color of the one line, the black lines, if you will, but then grayscale variations of those 4 different colors, which were now turned to grayscale. So then if you change the color in the palette, it would actually just change the tint of everything. So bottom line is, importing and scanning art, not scanning, but converting artwork that has color, I couldn't figure out. I mean, I tried it like at least half a dozen times, and everything I tried didn't work. So that made me get real pragmatic, and I said, well, what if we just do it in OpenToonz, use the toonz raster level, and do the ink there instead of Krita. And the reason I haven't done that in the past is because basically performance. I was thinking that it was sort of performance compromised. Let's put it that way. And then when I went in and did it, I found out I was completely wrong. Actually, the performance compared to Krita was comparable. And frankly, as you're doing your work and you begin to build up layers and stuff, Krita is actually worse. It does tend to bog down quicker. So anyway, so then that brought me to actually this level right here, where I did what I just described. I went in and actually did the ink here in OpenToonz, and I was like, wow, this actually looks really, really crisp, really clean. It's not perfect, but it was a step in the right direction. I hate to say this in a way, but the lesson learned here is that you know, my triumvirate of applications is Blender, Krita, OpenToonz. I keep discovering over and over that everything I have to do actually always works a little better in OpenToonz. It is what it is. I mean, I'm pretty much application agnostic at this point, but in the battle of the apps for both ease of workflow and quality, OpenToonz keeps winning. So anyway, with that in mind, I'm going to do the same thing on this level. And is this is not a sub-X sheet. So actually, I don't think this was the one I wanted to do. This is the one I was going to work on. Okay, so what I was going to do is the same thing here. Let's go down into this sub-X sheet and you can see what's going on. Okay, I had muted this layer. I'm sorry, not that layer. That's the plastic tool layer. Oh yeah, I turned it down. Sorry, my bad. Okay, so this is interesting. As usual, as soon as you sing the praises of OpenToonz, all of a sudden you start seeing bugs appear. And the bug is, for some reason, oh, I know why it is. Okay. This is actually also a sub-X sheet. So I've got a sub-X sheet inside another one. I've got to go down into this one, and this is where it was turned down. So the opacity of this is the art that I started with, and this is maybe a better illustration of what I was talking about. If you go in and look at this, it's pretty crappy. I mean, okay, at scale with all the effects added, yada yada, are we getting away with it? Yes, we're getting away with it. Does it really look good enough? No, it really doesn't. So we need to look at how we can improve that. So, and by the way, this layer actually has a bunch of paint over top of it, which makes it look better, which definitely helps. But I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to do what I was doing before, which is just turn this down so it serves as a guide, and now let's just do the ink in OpenToonz in the native way. Okay, so let me see if yeah, I'll go to the layer, the drawing, the drawing room. They call them rooms here in OpenToonz. Okay, so I gotta reacclimate to the OpenToonz hotkeys. But you can see this is extremely responsive. I mean, you can't really see my hand, but I can promise you this feels very responsive. I like the fact that the smoothing here in OpenToonz is every bit as effective as the smoothing with the stabilizer tool in Krita. So we're not losing anything. I do want to turn down the hardness though of this line so it's got a little bit more of a soft edge to it. That may affect, yeah, that looks better. So let's turn the smoothing way down, because when I'm sketching, especially if I'm zoomed in pretty much, there's no reason to have smoothing on. So let's just get to it and crank this thing out. So like I said, performance-wise, even on the laptop, I found this actually performs really well. So we're going to wind up with way better ink lines that, quite frankly, are a lot closer to what you would expect from any commercial anime show that you're watching. You know, this is pretty much how they do it in Japan. You know, if they're not scanning hand-drawn pencil art, they're going to be typically using a bitmap format. The reason I mention that is a lot of guys, and I was one of them for a while, we're kind of enamored with using vectors. And there's nothing wrong with vectors, but they're kind of suited to a certain kind of animation. Like if you're doing, oh, I don't know, not really the Seth MacFarlane kind of stuff, although you could, but I'm thinking more along the lines of, you know, your Johnny Test, your Cartoon Network type stuff. That's where, you know, vector, or some people would say flash, go in. I may wind up re-inking the whole thing, because to me, I don't care. I just want what's going to look good. And I'm closing a couple windows here so I can see if there's any chat or anything going on. It looks like there's 2 people watching, but stupid YouTube live stream, it's always freezing up. There it goes. Okay, so let's get this ink done, and then we'll go in and look at how, you see, because the thing is, when the ink is clean, man, the painting process goes way faster. You know, you're not doing way near as much patching all the time as you have to do, as I've had to do on this project so far. Now here, I'm going to go ahead and turn my smoothing up a little bit. I like the way the smoothing tool seems to finish your lines for you. So even though it's lagging behind, which you would expect from any stabilizer, it seems to continue through and finish the line. One of the flaws of the stabilizing in Blender's UV editor is that if you stop like this right here, see that? I stopped, but when I lift my stylus up, it finished the line for me. And in Blender, it won't do that. It just stops. So it always stops short, which is basically stupid. Why would you ever want that? You wouldn't ever want that. But that just goes to show you that not very many people are actually doing painting inside of Blender using the UV editor. You know, it kind of sort of wasn't really made for that anyway, even though it kind of sort of was. Right? So that is what it is. So yeah, I have to say I like the quality of this 100 million times better. You might notice I've got the brush set as a minimum size of 1, maximum size of 2, so there's not a lot of range for pressure. And according to this, pressure's turned off. Let's see what happens when we turn it on. It doesn't seem to make much difference, actually. I do find it interesting. I'm not seeing pressure helping for this, though. It seems to be. So I believe, unless I'm mistaken, with pressure turned off, we're going to get an ink line that is the max, so 2 pixels. I'm pretty sure that's true. How do you know for sure? I don't know. You go in here. Is that 1 pixel or 2? The only way we can know is to change the settings on the brush and see what happens. Okay, let's do that. Let's turn this down to 1.1 and see if it changes. Yeah, it changes. So apparently we're getting a 2 pixel ink line, which is fine because that's pretty much what we were getting out of Blender, so it matches what's been going on with the project. Right here I'm going to turn pressure on though to see if I can get a little bit more of a variation in my line. Okay, so now I'm going to zoom in and that looks pretty good. Probably an improvement over what I had before. So now back over here. Boom, boom. Okay, definitely a problem there. Wasn't paying attention. And the B key. Let's hit the old eraser. Okay, so that's interesting. I want to erase lines and areas at this point. I don't want to erase just areas. Okay, turning the smoothing back up, and gonna say something like that should be pretty good. So the objective here is just simply get that ink on there. Get that ink, baby. 1, 2, 3. Well, the good news is we can always go in and add more detail after the fact if we want to. But that gets us started. So now, going back to, let's say, I don't know, let's go to the animation room. Okay. So now it's not really a fair comparison because this is already colored in. So let me see. I'm going to go to palette here and let's see what we've got. Okay, that's not too bad. So based on this, I'm going to, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in here in the palette. I guess you have to hit the plus key to zoom in. Alright, and then I'm going to go down here to where my ninja colors are. I'm going to grab from here to here. I'm going to hit Control C. Hope this works. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go Control V. Worked. Worked great. Now I have all the colors pre-labeled. I like time savings. Okay, so that means we can literally kill this. Go here. And I don't believe I dragged this particular. Did I drag this one up to frame 1? Maybe I did. Let's find out. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to go here. And we're going to. Now this is where it should. Everything should go a little better. Okay. And by the way, we can see the painting that I did over top of this. But look at this. Look at how quickly and perfectly everything fills. I need to re-add the costume. So, I mean, look how fast that went. Now, one thing we do need to do is adjust the color on our outlines. We need to bring those up a little bit for our ninjas so we can see what we're doing. Alright, so I'm going to look at this on another screen to see, probably about there. Okay, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to go ahead and paint the ninja's eyes. Don't ask me why they're so pink. But okay, so in this whole shot, I'm actually only seeing 2 spots that need further work. So let's go to the fill tool and put it in freehand mode. We've already got the hair selected, so we can grab that. And admittedly, as I'm zooming in, I'm seeing a couple more spots, but basically not too bad. Okay, There we go. So now let us compare. I guess if I turn this on underneath it, which do we like better? I do like the sketchy quality of this, but not enough to say I prefer it. Now we've got to deal with shadowing and that sort of stuff as well here, and we definitely need to put these wraps back on. So there's our outline color. Let's go to the brush. Should we use the other one as a guide? Nah, it's all sketchy anyway. So it just, there we go. That looks better than the other one did anyway. And that actually suggests to me that I should probably be doing this sort of thing more often, where I yeah, no contest. No contest. I want to add a little more detail in the hair. And let's look at this actual size. I mean, could I see those outlines being a little bolder? For yeah, we want to find the sweet spot between, you know, what I'm about to try and say is that in a perfect world, you'd probably use a different color outline for most of this versus on the costume, because you'd want the lines on the costume to be lighter. I'm refreshing my YouTube window because, again, it seems to be frozen. It's always freezing up. Okay, and with that, I would say that I want to erase this line. Whoops. I want to erase only lines, because it's fighting with the painting that I added. Those lines are not helping at all. Okay. So now we should, if we hop up out of here, and by the way, I need to turn this off. I'm going to keep it in there, but I need to turn off the preview mode, because otherwise when I go to render, it'll still be there. It'll still show up. So now I got to go up out of the sub-X sheet, and let's just do a little preview. And okay, we don't want that to go forever. By the way, we only want 21 frames. 21 frames. 2 and 1. Okay. L key. Okay. That looks pretty good. That looks quite good. That looks less good, and I would say that's because we don't really just want a blue overlay. We want some sort of blending mode, probably overlay blending mode, actually, if the truth be known. The way I've got it set up, it doesn't matter if it's in preview mode. So that's a good thing, because it saves you time, because what you're seeing in the slosh mode looks the same as what it's going to look like in preview. In other words, this is what's going to render. But that blue cast is not quite what we're after. Not at all. You can see if we turn it up. I don't know. I'm thinking for now, I'm going to go ahead and just leave it like that. So it's just a blue tint, basically. Not really darkening it too much, but at the post-production phase, we're gonna do some stuff in the schematic view so that we actually get a proper, probably it's either going to be multiply or overlay to combine those two together. So the upshot of the story here is that the ink lines, using the native OpenToonz, seems to be quite a win. So I'm going to go back up out of this sub-X sheet. Looks like I've been streaming for 37 minutes. I'm going to go on to the next shot. So let's get busy. Okay, so here's what we have. I've already created it as a sub-X sheet. What did I just do? Go down into the sub-X sheet. I did not drag the frames to 0. So in other words, I didn't take the frames in the sub-X sheet, move them up to frame 1, and then resequence it. We're just going to go ahead and set a new preview range here so we can deal with this shot all by itself. Okay, so now given that, we've got basically three keyframes here. We preview it. So the this is just the tassels. So for our purposes right now, we can just take those out. So what we need to do is we need to re-ink this. It's got to be, I want to re-ink it, and re-ink it using the OpenToonz toonz raster levels. So with that, I'm going to go Alt-N. I'm going to add a toonz raster level, and there it is. I'm going to go ahead and take this, turn the opacity of it fairly low, so that I can just go in here and be able to see what I'm doing. And it is probably going to be important to not deviate from this, from the guiding art that I'm using here. I don't want to deviate from it too much because I don't want to introduce new, larger changes between this keyframe and the next. Is this, everything's the same. Hardness is smooth, pressure. Don't know if I want quite that much smoothing, but you know, the main problem with smoothing is that it causes your line to lag a little bit. It's not the end of the world, but it definitely doesn't feel quite as responsive when you have a lot of smoothing turned on. Of course, the obvious benefit is your lines are smooth. I mean, if I crank the smoothing way up, then you get, see how far it lags behind the dot? But you get really smooth lines. So that's your trade-off. And like I said, if I lift my marker now, or my stylus, it'll finish the line for me. So all in all, it's a pretty smart implementation of smoothing. I see I got two watching. Identify yourselves. Who are you, and why are you here? Yep, when we do the soundtrack for this anime, I'll probably do the some of the voices. I taught my parrot to say, "Good news, everyone!" Like Professor Farnsworth. In case, if you don't watch Futurama, shame on you. You should watch Futurama. It's a funny show. Frankly, I like Futurama better than The Simpsons. They're both Matt Groening shows. You probably knew that. You know, I don't know why. It's like Seth MacFarlane shows. I like American Dad better than Family Guy. So, especially the sort of uncensored version of Family Guy is, to me, it's gratuitously vulgar, and that's okay to an extent. But what happens is it makes the writers lazy. It's like fart jokes or something. You know, they start to depend on vulgarity for the humor, and vulgarity in and of itself is really never funny. You know, it's the context in which it happens. You know, for example, calling somebody a dirty mofo is not funny. It's just rude. But I suppose I'm just spitballing here, but you know, if a little old lady who looks very ginger and delicate and sickly, you know, turns around and unloads on somebody that way, that might be funny. That's probably not a great example, but that's what I mean. Context matters a lot. So now we have 5 watching. Who are you people? I said it before and I'll say it again. Identify yourselves. I must know who you are and why you are here. And you might wonder, Mr. Animator Guy, why are you making all these stupid voices? Well, I'm entertaining myself because nobody's posting any chat. So the only thing I have to do for fun is, well, animation. Fortunately, it's pretty fun. I gotta zoom back in here to see what I'm doing. So anyway, we'll get these ink lines done, and then we'll be able to, and we got to deal with the keyframes. I'm hoping I can use the S key to cut some pieces here and paste them back in the subsequent keyframes. That will, whoops, that will not only save me time, but probably give me a smoother transition, because as you can see in the template here, we actually have 3 keyframes because the guy's trying to climb up the rock wall, right? The wall of the Tibetan monastery. So anyway, yeah, like I said, nobody's really saying who they are or why they're here. You know, animators get lonely. This is a lonely pursuit. This isn't, you know, it's like I'm talking here and I know there's people out there listening. That's kind of weird. They're listening, but I don't know who they are. Who are these people who are listening to me? Anyway, okay, OpenToonz, inking using toonz raster level, clearly emerging as a better solution by a pretty wide margin, frankly, than using the Blender grease pencil. I wish it weren't true, but it's true. OpenToonz toonz raster level for inking also proving to be a better option than Krita. Krita's good. Basically, this experience of drawing ink lines is about the same between Krita and OpenToonz. The problem is that it's a lot easier to get Krita bogging down, and obviously from the standpoint of animation, it's way, way, way less powerful. It's basically just traditional step-by-step keyframe animation, end of story. There's a couple workarounds. You can group layers, and if for example, if you translate a layer group in Krita, how it deals with that isn't completely stupid. What it does is it adds a keyframe to each of the constituent levels. So if I were to take these layers here, hit Control G, put them in a group, and then go here and create a keyframe for the group using, let's say, the translate tool. Okay. And are we going to see Krita now starting to act stupid? The translate tool doesn't seem to be, oh yeah, you can't use the, okay, so this is just a quick diversion. Now I'm going to go to frame 3, same thing, frame 6, same thing, and I'm pretty sure what happens is, you can see on each of the layers that are in the group, Krita inserts a keyframe. So you can kind of treat layers as a group, but it's sure a lot less capable than what you can do in OpenToonz. So use the right tool for the job, right? So, gosh, still no comments. But whoever you are watching, you know, thanks for watching. Let's get this done. I'm leaving these lines open so that when I fill it with color, it'll fill the whole shape. Just, you know, why not? So let's get this. Make sure that's closed because that's got to be flesh tone. And let's zoom out and see what we have. I believe, missed a spot. All right, and this, I'm gonna actually hit the H key. Hopefully I won't. I'm gonna actually save my work, because it's been my experience that the flipping the canvas in OpenToonz can invite a crash. There's a lot of things in OpenToonz that can invite a crash. The biggest piece of advice I'd give anybody using OpenToonz is just save your work frequently, because it does seem to recover from crashes quite readily. I mean, you're not gonna save your work if you haven't been saving it, but you will be able to you will be able to, like, if OpenToonz, like there's some operations you can use like the S key that will tend to make the OpenToonz interface all of a sudden start acting funky, let's say. It'll get choppy and sort of freeze up. And if you close OpenToonz and reopen it, it goes back to normal. So it's a little inconvenient, but it's not the end of the world. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to do the same thing here. Yeah, it's because I've put all these shots together in one major X sheet. It isn't quite as convenient as I hoped. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit D twice because I got this keyframe and I got this keyframe. Okay. So by hitting D twice, I can put this here. Whoops. To match that. And then I can put this here to match that. And hit the eraser. Erase these lines. And then fix it up by redrawing what I need to. Okay, now there is one point here that's important. Let's jump between our keyframes. Yeah, actually, his hand would not move like that. Right? So it's kind of important that we not be stupid. So not being stupid in this case means making sure this lines up properly. Because, and it looks like there's a slight rotation on it. Actually, let's take the center here, put the center right on this hand. So we're going to rotate around the hand. Okay, that way I can sort of make things line up properly. Okay, so let me just jump between these two keyframes. That amount of movement's fine. That's fine. Okay, so now I just need to go ahead and ink in this bit here. So that would be the brush. Okay. I don't know why I've got the song Sir Duke going through my head today. The old Stevie Wonder song. Make 'em feel it all over. Make 'em feel it all over, people. Right? Stevie Wonder. Not a huge fan. Not a huge fan, but he's had, you know, nah, I don't want to do that. He's definitely had some noteworthy tunes over the years. Now, I am curious. Yeah, what the heck is this? Oh, that's from doing the S key. Okay, so I just need to hit the eraser. And by the way, why is the eraser so small? Let's get a cool eraser, not a stupid eraser. All right. Pulling back out to see what we've got. Okay. Now, the next keyframe is somewhat significantly different. And here's how we're going to do this one. This one's going to actually be kind of interesting and fun. Watch this. I'm going to hit the S key. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this guy at the elbow and the knee. And all I'm going to do is move that part. And then everything else will get redrawn. For those purposes, this guide might as well be turned off because it's just going to add confusion. Well, I shouldn't say that. What I really should do is, let's do this too. It's tempting to cut and paste this and reverse it. Just flip it over here. But I don't know. I think that'd be kind of chimpy and well, it'd be kind of chimpy and lazy. So let's just go ahead and get rid of the lines that are not necessary. so that we can redraw what needs to be redrawn. Down here, I'm going to go ahead and leave this in here because I want to be able to match these lines perfectly, and the best way to do that is to just cut them and move them. So that's that. Okay, so that means we can grab the S key, grab this little guy right here. Let's put his anchor point there and rotate that around and then move it to where it needs to be, and then we'll patch it up. That's perfect. This one, whoops, S key, same thing. Put the anchor point at the wrist, which is where it would turn. Move it around like that. And then actually, the hand needs to be put back to where it belongs. So that looks pretty good. And now we go back to the brush and fix it up. To the eraser. Now I'm actually going to leave the hardness turned up here so we get a nice clean sharp edge. We can get right up to the edge there with our lines. Okay, that looks pretty good. Pretty good. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, what's the story here? Well, according to our guide, actually I don't think that matters. I'm gonna leave that one alone and see if it turns out to have mattered, because I don't think it's gonna. Right here also, I'm thinking a little bit more bagginess on his costume. Alright, and then let's hit the eraser and allow this to sort of overlap. Okay. Better. Boom, boom, boom. Got that. Let's erase. Let's just erase and redo that. It's faster than trying to delicately erase it perfectly. It's way easier to just redraw it. So, what do we got going here? Oh, almost an hour, so. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. Got that. Now we got to get this. It's got the rear end of his, I guess you'd call it a sandal. And up until now, what I've been doing is making a distinction between the leather of this. I don't actually like that line. That was a little sloppy. The leather of the sandal and the, I don't know what you call it, I guess the straps are actually two different colors if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so now we got to toggle between these keyframes. Just make sure we sort of follow the concept that we had before. Okay. Now I'm going to say maybe even something like that. Okay. Let's pull out. Now we need to double check our preview range, kill this guy, and hit the L key, and let's just see if things are, nope, there's one problem. Okay, next keyframe, and the problem is right here. You notice if you hit the plus key, it actually will get the wrong layer there. Wrong layer, Dave. Okay. Boom, boom. Okay. Let's check it again. Looks like something's getting erased right there. Yep, it is. Alright, so we don't want to get sloppy. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Okay. And also, I want to make sure I'm on this keyframe when I redraw that so I don't inadvertently insert an extra in between. So that would be like that. I think that's pretty much what we are after. Okay. So now let's preview that. Yeah, it's probably what I would do. Half and half or whatever. Okay, so there's only one thing I'm seeing here. Okay, that was an illusion. So now the question becomes, do we want to add in-betweens? Do we want to tighten up this motion at all? Well, let's just take a look here. Okay, that looks fine. What if we stuck something in here? Alright, I'm going to save my work and then play a bit with this. I'm saying this is where we'd want to do it. If I hit the draw key, I get a blank key. So that's fine. Excuse me. Since I'm going from this drawing, where'd my drawing go? Oh, there it is. Since I'm going from this drawing, I'm going to select this, hit Control C, go here, hit Control V, and now I can toggle between these two keyframes. Yep, and this guy can be erased. And I'm going to turn on the onion skins, because I've really, since I'm using essentially an inking brush here, there's not a lot of margin for the wraps at this point, so I think we can be fairly loosey-goosey on that. The only thing I would complain about is kind of made that too big. So just as a little experiment here, I'm curious if we can set the anchor point there so that when we scale it, we scale towards that anchor point. That's pretty cool. Back to the B key, quick erasure, zoom in. Yep, B key, and that looks pretty good. So alright, so the thing I'm thinking is, if we're going to have that amount of movement, then I think on this keyframe, I want to change his foot a little bit. So let's go in here. I'm going to erase that. Yep, that looks better. Okay. So now that's got to be like that. Don't know if that would be quite that thick, actually. Okay. Let's turn the onion skin off. And there would probably be a line there. And this. For the sole, let's erase that little flaw right there. Let's erase that little flaw right there. Again. Okay. I think that looks pretty good. The L key. That's interesting. I screwed that up. How did I screw that up? We were here. We got one in between. And then... Oh, I see. I blew it. Okay. My bad mistake here. Bad mistake. But that's okay. We can fix this pretty easily. I'm going to take this section, cut it. Well, I should say copy it. Okay. I'm going to erase, erase, erase here. I'm going to paste it in. I think I just killed OpenToonz. Save all. Darn it. Okay, what seems to be the case here is if you use the S key, you've got to finish up with the S key. You can't switch to a different tool. Yeah, see, there we go. Now, that, I think, since that all happens kind of quickly, I do wonder if I should put it on the previous frame. Let's just, I might be really nitpicking here, but I'm gonna say we should probably erase this, go here, Control C, Control V. Does not quite, well, actually, okay. Okay, well, let's sew those together. That's actually gonna be alright. Let's crank the smoothing back down. Okay, I actually think that's going to work. So let's loop it. Yeah, that's fine. You don't really even notice it because that's not what you're going to be thinking about. But the point is this right here. I had the pose completely all wrong on the this last shot. I don't know quite what I was thinking. Very strange, because I don't know if I'm remembering wrong, but it seems to me that I did all this. What do we got here? Let's look at these. Oh, these are just copies. Okay. Whatever. So how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to go S key. Shift his torso up. Eraser. Get rid of erroneous lines. They definitely are going to have to be eliminated. Like so. Yeah, this is actually kind of bizarre because I know I'm kind of moving fast here, but I also know that I remember redrawing the bent arm, unless I'm going insane, which maybe I am, but you know, whatever. That's fine. We'll get her going here. Okay, so now let's just toggle between our keyframes. Yep, that looks good. The only thing I want to do is save myself some time. I know I already did this, but Let's grab this, move it slightly. Let's grab this. And I think in this case we can just rotate the whole thing. Okay. For some reason I'm not seeing the rotate tool. There it is. Okay, so there's the rotate tool. Now we can grab this. Rotate tool. Nice. Save early, save often. Now, Alt-0. Okay. Okay. No point being pokey about it. Okay. Got a little bit of artifacting going on. And honestly, this would probably be, you would actually see a little bit of the sole of his foot there. This doesn't look bad, but it's not really consistent with what I was doing previously, so that's all okay. That looks okay. Yep, got a little work to do up here. Erase. Erase. Let's get rid of these artifacts. They are not helping us. Yeah, I totally remember doing this. I don't know how I sort of did it and lost it, but them's the breaks. Okay. I'm guessing maybe when I inserted the new keyframe in between, maybe I created some side effect that I didn't notice until much later, and therefore it's not really possible to undo and solve it without getting rid of a bunch of work that I actually did want to keep. So therefore you just redo it. Okay, let's back off and see what's going on here. Oops, gotta make sure you're in the correct layer. Okay, loop, let's loop it. Okay, that's better. I like it with that in between in there for sure. Alright, let's get it colored. What we're going to do is we're going to climb up out of this sub X sheet. And is this where we're at? Yes. So we're going to go down into this sub X sheet in order to shamelessly pilfer the palette for this. So what we're going to do is we're going to click here, just hit Control C, up out of this sub X sheet, up out of that sub X sheet, and down into this one. We go down into it. We got to get down to our frames, obviously. One of the slightly obnoxious side effects of working the way I'm working. Hit Control V, save my work. Okay, so now I've got all the colors I need to do what I got to do. And since we're learning as we go, hey Oscar, how you doing, man? I am going to use the fill tool with frame range. Okay, and so I'm going to click Ninja Costume here, here. Oh, OpenToonz just blew up. Good thing I just saved my work. 1, 2. Good thing I save early, save often. Cancel, open. Okay. So we're going to go down to this shot. Go down into the... And actually, I'm going to go ahead and correct this little issue. Because the way I've been doing it, I think makes more sense. So what I do is I grab this frame, and grab this frame, so I got the whole bunch. It starts at frame 386, and let's just drag this up to the top. It seems like there's less jumping around when you go ahead and start your sub X sheets at frame 1. Okay, so there we go. Let's climb up out of the sub X sheet, and we can see that it is showing red, which means it's got a little problem. I'm going to hit resequence, and now in the main X sheet it starts at frame 386, but happily in the sub X sheet it starts at frame 1, and it jumps back and forth between them. Here's the key takeaway from that. If there's a lesson to be learned, it is this: if I had not dragged these frames from 386 up to 1, but rather had cut and pasted them, I don't think this would have worked. I would have had to actually had to go up to the top of the main sub X sheet and drag the sub X sheet column back down. So by dragging them, you solve that problem. Okay, so now we're back to color, which is super cool. Now we're going to find out if the issue that I just introduced is going to rear its ugly head again. So I'm going to click Ninja Costume, Fill Tool, Frame Range, and I'm filling areas. So let's just give this a try. We'll go here, and then we're going to go to the next keyframe, the next keyframe, the next keyframe, and here. And that worked. Okay, so now we're going to go here, 1, 2, 3, here. Not quite. Okay. So there's the problem with frame range. You got to be very exacting about where you click. So in my opinion, since I'm only dealing with 4 keyframes, using the frame range option is probably more trouble than it's worth. So we're going to turn that back off, and let's just do it the hard way. By the way, the comma key and the period key are how you jump between drawings. And you might be thinking, hey Dave, what about the fact that you can't even see your outlines? I'm well aware of that. What we need to do is take this color right here and just crank the value of it up until our lines start to appear. And we just kind of want to find the happy balance between light enough to see it against the black costume and dark enough to see it against everything else. So as you can see, by using the toonz raster level for my ink, the fill process is quite a bit easier. There's a lot less artifacting. Like a lot less. It's not perfect, but it's definitely better. And in my opinion, the quality of the ink lines is nicer than what I got out of Blender. You can see there's some artifacting that we'll have to address with the freehand tool, but not a ton. So that looks okay. That needs to fill his socks. Really, that should be there. Alright, anything going on over here? Okay, not much. Alright, so we got, let's go to freehand mode. Let's go to Ninja Flesh Color. Get that. Get that. I'm doing this with the mouse, by the way, which is probably kind of dumb. Should be using the... Okay. So let's go to the tippy top here. Just get these guys. It's definitely, all in all, probably faster to use the the freehand tool, or the freehand fill method instead of the regular, what they call normal, which is just a click. It's just more precise and accurate when you drag. Ninja costume. So let's just go back, look for artifacts. Okay. Very good. Okay, so now I'm going up to the top. Let's get that and that. Very good. I'm going to go normal here. Boom. Okay. Same thing here. And we got all those. Got a little bit of a mistake, or not a mistake, but a little bit of a fill we need to do there. Let's go to the, let's do ninja hair. Okay, so we're just gonna okay, I got a glitch there that clearly needs to be fixed. So we're erasing only lines at this point. What that means is if I hit the erase in here, it isn't going to do anything at all. So that should be real specific about what's getting erased. Okay, so there's that. Now we're down to, again, fill tool with the leather. So I'm going to go ahead and just, whoop, didn't mean to do that. That was dumb. Boom. Yeah, let's do it that way. Okay, there's that. And then the soles are just a little bit darker color. Let's do this one freehand. I could zoom in, but I'm just kind of... Okay, that's fine. Alright, let's back off. Loop it. And okay, so this is the downside of rearranging your X sheet so that you can start at frame 1. All in all, it's a win, but if you want to do a preview, then you do have to reset your stop and start markers. But the thing is, once you do it the first time, then if you do it the same way with all your sub X sheets, then you're always starting at frame 1. The only thing you have to change is just where it stops each time, you know, depending on what sub X sheet you're in. Okay, so yeah, obviously I forgot to do somebody forgot to get his feet colored down yonder, so plus key a couple times. Soles of his shoe. Let's try normal and see if we have luck. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Okay. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, now this is kind of interesting. Makes me wonder if I forgot to do this, or is OpenToonz being a little bit funny? Not sure. That's okay. Okay, get that little hiccup right there. Ninja costume. So let's go back to frame 1. And I wish I had a hotkey for this. I'll have to look into if I can modify that with a hotkey, so I can switch between freehand and regular mode. It would definitely be quite a bit faster. Okay, so now we do have some touch up, a little bit of touch up. There's always touch up. No matter what you do, there's always stuff to touch up. No matter what program you're using. If I was doing this in Krita, I'd have to just hand paint it, which of course you could do in OpenToonz too. You could brush colors on in a separate layer if you wanted to work that way. There is no right answer. It's whatever you like doing. And okay, I didn't mean to zoom in, not that much. Okay, so boom, 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 boom. Ah, look at this foot. You silly guy, you forgot to do the other foot. So plus, plus. The reason I'm hitting the plus key is, well, actually, let's see what happens. If I hit Shift Spacebar, it will zoom in, anchored on wherever my mouse was. So that's definitely pretty useful. Fill tool. fill tool, leather. Okay, and one little touch up right there. As long as I'm here, I might as well do it. Oh, another touch up right there. Okay, so now it's good to just toggle through your keyframes, see if there's anything that needs to be tweaked. Probably a little down. And now we have to put the wall in this shot. So let's do it. Let's go down into the sub X sheet, and we're probably going to want to just, let me get my file browser. I use FS Viewer Portable for this type of work. Okay, and then this is the shot we're using. So I'm going to come in here, drag it in there. We're just going to load it. We're not going to import it. And then this is going to go back here and obviously be completely shifted. And it doesn't really have to be exact in terms of the location. So I'm at a bit of a disadvantage here because the X sheet doesn't really have that much real estate. It'd be easier for me to actually, you know what I should do? I've got an idea. Yeah, let's do it this way. Okay, let's leave this as it is, but now let's just transition. I can be operating in this view in the, let's call it the fast mode. In other words, it's not in preview/render mode. And then up here on this other screen, back here. And I see Kyle walking around in the background. Hey, Kyle. Kyle just said hello to the entire world. Okay, so now how are we going to do the shadow? Obviously, he's got to have a shadow. We haven't dealt with color correction yet. We haven't dealt with shadow yet. So, the way I will do it is as follows. And I'm actually going to switch back here. X sheet, move this column over. This is the, we'll call this tassel, because that's what it is. And what I want to do is actually duplicate this. I don't know if I can do it this way. I'm going to try. I'm going to go Control C and Control V. Okay, that worked. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is take this level, and this one would be the shadow. call this the shadow, and offset it. Okay, we're just going to offset it like that. Cool. Now we can go to the here. Now obviously in this viewport you can't see it. Just for my own convenience, what I might do is in the fast view, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to do it to this one. Turn this level down on this layer, just so that in this fast mode it gives me kind of an approximation of what it's actually going to look like. Now the problem now becomes that we've got to add some color correction to the whole shot, and which is not to say that there isn't even more to do in terms of details like on his hair, highlights, shadows and stuff on the character. That's all got to be done too, but for now let's just make sure the motion is working out. Yeah, I mean that looks pretty good actually, doesn't it? So we'll worry about the details on the character later because we know that's going to work. So what I want to do is go back to this Now we're back to here, and one thing that's kind of a bummer actually is you'll notice that in the sub-X sheet, when I change the opacity of the fast view layer, when you go up out of the sub-X sheet you lose that, which is kind of a bummer, but it is what it is. So now we've done this shot, we've gotten from here to here with new ink, and we've got this shot which has new ink. I'm liking it. It'd be interesting to do a full render, but you don't want to sit through all that. So I think with that I'm going to call it a day. It's been an hour and a half. I'm sure I'll be back again before too long, and hopefully getting close to having this shot in the can.